It's just hot here in Atmore. Yeah, South Alabama is just hot. This is all about printmaking with Phil and Amy, and today we're going to have a little discussion about making prints.
Yeah, going to get some in depth on some of those.
We're going to go a little bit farther, but what I would like to do is outline briefly some of the same things that we talked about last time, but I'm going to go into a little more detail specifically on one. We'll pick like one and talk a little bit more about that one.
Okay.
For instance, last week we talked about the different forms being, this is a test.
Uh-oh.
Relief, intaglio, planographic, and stencil.
Okay.
And
I remember that.
so
Get me to repeat it.
So I think once I finish my little introduction here, we'll just talk about relief printmaking for a few minutes.
All right. Everybody needs relief.
Yeah. And then we'll get into some of the materials that's used. Because if you start talking about materials, there's so many different areas. It's like the different forms. There's a whole different line of materials and tools used for intaglio than you use for relief. And then it's totally different if you're using stencil or planographic litho.
I guess that's why when you keep doing that, you really just want to stick with one.
If you try to sit down and talk about everything, I mean, the podcast would go on for like 3 days.
Oh.
You know. So what I want to do is break it down piece by piece and just talk a little bit about each segment. And then when we get to the end of talking about which will take probably 4 podcast episodes to talk about the 4 forms, then we'll start talking about the reasons and the artists and why you do it, and the art that can come about, and the materials and stuff.
Right. Okay.
So matrices. You remember what the matrices are? Matrix.
Matrix. Yes.
The matrix, wood for wood cutting, a matrix of metal for intaglio, etchings, and the matrix for a stencil is a silkscreen.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I mean, there's other ways to do stenciling, but the major way to do stenciling is silkscreen now, either for T-shirts or printing on paper.
So never mind. We'll ask that question later. Sorry.
And there's a lot of other little tweaks from each of those. From one of those, you might intaglio method might include colography, or the planographic method might include hand coloring, or the etchings might include using. There's a word for it where you tear out little pieces of paper and overlap them, and you run those through the press when you print on top of it. So there's different ways, different techniques, but there's the 4 basic forms. Which reminds me, didn't I give you an assignment last week?
Yes, teacher, you did give me an assignment.
What did you come up with?
Well, come up with quite a few web pages that have some interesting information on it. You want me to share those?
You can share them, but what I'm going to do is probably take that list from you and just put them in the show notes also.
Oh, so you don't want me to go
you
word for word?
No.
Just give them an example of some of the things I found?
Yeah, just kind of give me, give us a highlight of what you found, and then we'll add it in the show notes.
Okay, that'll work. Well, one of the ones that I found very interesting is printcenternewyork.org. That one I found very interesting. So, if anyone's interested to see what's going on in that area, they can always go to that web address. And again, we'll have these down in the notes.
Okay.
Then we have something that's geared toward children. Kinderart.com. There's art lessons, printmaking. What is printmaking? I guess it's the 101 for children.
Oh, and, wow. Geared for a smaller crowd.
Crowd, that's right. So if you have a child that has an interest in doing something like that, especially artwork, you find their doodles on the wall, maybe you can have them doodle on something else.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a print out of it.
That's right. And
instead of 1 on the fridge, you could have 20 on the fridge.
Absolutely. This is the one we're most proud of. But that's just a couple of them that I found in my research. And again, we'll put the whole list out in the show notes.
Great. Well, it's very commendable on your efforts in researching on something which you really have no interest in.
I put down Facebook for this, even though some of these were found in Facebook. You can find stuff there, so it's not completely foreign.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look at those myself. I haven't had a opportunity to do too much research except on the podcast. I've been listening to this one podcast. I may have mentioned it in the last episode. The Bluegrass Printmakers podcast.
Yeah, here in Alabama somewhere.
It's an Alabama-based forum, and the host had kind of an irritating voice, but you have to get past that. But it's interesting what his format was interviewing printmaking guests from around the state, and I just find it interesting to listen to other printmakers discuss their skill.
Yeah, you said something about we might have some guests on later on.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah, I would love to do that myself.
Right.
But that would probably entail hooking up the phone, having it come through the phone.
Not the phone.
And that's kind of a substandard audio there for my system anyway.
Right.
But I can do that. Mm-hmm. It can be done. And that would be a way to tap into the skill and the background and the knowledge of other printmakers.
Right. Well, it will be nice to be able to hear about some of those printmaking extraordinaires from years gone by, right?
Yeah.
People that we didn't even know.
Right. When you're out, when people are out like on their Saturday jaunts around, whatever they do, and if they don't go golfing, if they out shopping or going to the mall, or they might visit a frame shop or a gallery somewhere.
Right.
If you're in these little quaint little towns, sometimes they'll have galleries in there.
Right.
Little beach towns where they sell beach theme scenes and stuff like that. Those are fun to go to.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see some of the detail that's put in on those that you wouldn't have paid attention to otherwise.
And I always look for the prints.
And you always look for the prints.
I always look for the prints. I don't know. I just find them interesting for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna delve into, for about the next 7 or 8 minutes, we're going to talk about relief printmaking here in our little corner of the world here in sunny Alabama.
Hot Alabama.
Hot, yeah. So, did we discuss relief printmaking at all last time?
I think we just mentioned that it was a type.
One of the forms. Yeah.
Right.
And relief printmaking is the form where you print on the raised surfaces that's left over after cutting into the matrix.
Right.
And the matrix could be linoleum, and they call that A.
He's testing me, and I'm not going to fail because I'm not going to say.
Amy called it a lino cut last time, like Jay Leno cut.
Yeah.
So,
I'm from the South.
But it's on linoleum, so naturally you call it a lino cut.
I mean, that's what I thought, but you did have to correct me, so it's okay.
Yeah. But that's, even I find that really awkward because I don't understand why it was changed.
Right. Well, when you bring in the different types of languages, then that happens.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And woodcuts. Woodcuts are done on a piece of wood that's sanded flat.
Right.
The beauty of linoleum is a smoother, it's a softer material,
Right.
Yet it's durable enough to hold up under multiple printings when you have to roll the ink on it with a brayer.
Right.
But you can do a much more detailed photographic kind of image on linoleum because it's easier to cut.
Right.
And if you get the proper tools, then you can cut all sorts of little fine detailed images.
Right.
On wood is more archaic. Wood, not archaic, what's the purist?
Yes.
Your wood is more the purist matrix because it has a grain, depending on the kind of wood you use. But you take that wood surface and you sand it nice and smooth, and then you start carving into it, and you're cutting, the act of cutting, sometimes, if you've ever tried to whittle, you'll know when you run into a grain, the grain doesn't always cut the way you want it. It'll cut the way the wood grain is. And so you have to kind of manipulate the wood according to the wood. The wood has a mind of its own.
Absolutely. I remember trying to chop
Right.
it.
Yeah. And I had what was his name? The teacher at the University of Florida who was really famous in that area for wood cutting and letterpress. But he, I can't remember his name. But he taught. I had a class with him, and he would go get cutting boards from the store, like food cutting boards.
Really?
Big ones. He would take these big cutting boards that are already made from different pieces of wood that are formed together and glued and sanded, and he would sand those off even better, and he would use those to cut into to make his wood cuts, his imagery in the matrix.
Well,
and
I guess that saves you some of the work, huh?
It saves a lot of work because if you go out there looking for hardwoods that you can use that's amenable to cutting with a cutting tool, a gouge, you can't just get any old pine board.
No,
it's too soft. It won't cut and slice intricate lines the way you want it to.
Right.
So
he did it the smart way.
He said that was a sensible way. Just go buy a cutting board from the store.
I don't blame
you. There are other purist, more purist ways of making your own cutting boards. Even.
Well, this is true.
But
kudos to him.
Depends on how far you want to take it.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, but I think there are possibly different brayers also that you might want to use, hard or soft, for printing on linoleum versus wood. When I was a teacher, and I was teaching kids how to introducing them to printmaking, the most basic relief printmaking matrix that we used was a potato.
Okay.
Have you ever done that?
No.
You cut a potato in half, and on the smooth side, one of the smooth sides, you can just carve into with a butter knife or a spoon or whatever. You can carve some shapes into that flat side of a potato, and then put some ink on a glass or a flat surface, and use that potato like a stamp. You put it in, and you can make images with that carving that you did in the potato.
How about that?
That was like the first introduction to relief printmaking for most of the kids.
Right.
Either that or foam. Sometimes I would I'd tell them to bring a foam tray when their mom cooked pork chops for dinner or something.
Right.
They'd take that foam tray that was left under the meat and clean it off good and bring that to school. So they would bring a piece of foam like that to school, and then we'd turn it over and cut the edges off so it's a flat piece of foam. And then they would just take a stick or something and burn it, making marks into that foam. And then when they would ink over it with the brayer, they could print that onto paper, and it would transfer the image that they carved. Now, the foam didn't last very long,
of course,
because you're going to be pushing it down, squeezing it. But it gives them an idea how to do. They would do 2 or 3 prints from the same image, and they get that idea. Oh, I'm not just doing one picture. I can make more. I can carve in it some more and do a different type of from the same plate.
Yeah. One for mom, one for dad, right?
Yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities. That's part of the kinder. It's probably That's probably on that, something to do on that kinder.
Yep.
Because I taught elementary school. I had to figure out ways that they would, they could handle, I can't give them sharp instruments.
This group, they were still using the fat crayons.
yeah. I could not give them sharp gouges.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good thing.
Any other kind of relief printmaking ideas we need to cover here before we close this out?
You know, my brain has information in it, but none of it's coming out with the relief part of it. You know.
You don't have any memories of as a kid or any time where you never carved a stamp. I mean a stamp on an eraser or something like that.
No, I don't remember any of that. Quite frankly, I wasn't a very good artist anyway.
Yeah.
So getting into more in depth into that was not something that I ventured into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for those that find it interesting, you know, hey, more power to you.
Now there's I can't remember what it's called. A guy in Atlanta who's a printmaker, and he carves relief prints on these big pieces of wood. He buys it specially made for carving into. They're just big panels, big plates of wood, very smooth. Mm-hmm. And he carves these intricate images of animals of all kinds. Wow. And he actually prints those instead of doing silkscreen T-shirts. He prints them on T-shirts.
Wow.
He'll run them through a press, like a round, and he puts the shirt down onto the plate after he inks it. Mm-hmm. And it's a relief printmaking process, but he uses a roller press.
Right.
And he prints on shirts.
How about that? And
he goes to these craft shows and he sells all these shirts. He's very popular. He makes a good living doing that.
I can see, because people will see that and they're like, hey, I'd like to have a shirt like, well, glad you asked.
Right.
Here you go.
I'll do you one right now.
Give me just a few minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And the possibilities are endless. I mean, that whole idea of, well, I can do another one just like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I got you. I got the whole family. Here
we are at 17 minutes again.
Oh, boy.
Gee whiz, the time flies. Well, let's call it for today. All That's right. The end of this show. Okay. And we'll proceed with another one next time.
All right.
And hopefully...
no homework for me today?
No homework today.
Okay.
I'll come up with something for you for the next one, though.
All right. Well, I'll try to remember to do it then.
All right. This is it for All About Printmaking with Phil and Amy. Say bye, Amy.
Bye, Amy.
Bye, y'all. See you later.